Welcome to episode 63 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men the Animated Series weekly recap podcast. I'm JC, and despite what we're going to say in a few minutes, we actually recorded this and the previous episode, next episode, out of order. Good luck, Rod.
And I'm Rod. I'm probably tired at this point.
We only did 2 episodes tonight, and this is only the second one, so you have no excuse.
I know, I'm mainly talking about editing Rod.
Editing Rod, yes. Our sort of friend for later on.
Right. Cyclops is Waiting for Me as our weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single episode of the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series in their original intended script order, building up to the release of X-Men 97, coming to Disney Plus later this year. Yeah, this is all confusing. We recorded the one after this, before this, and then the one that's coming 2 weeks after the next one, or so 3 weeks from now, we recorded last week. I'm all over the place. Luckily, the story doesn't matter, but in my head, everything's happened like in different order.
Some quick reminders. We are a recap show about a series that started now over 30 years ago. There will be spoilers, and if you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, then come back, and we will do our best to avoid mentioning anything from future episodes that we haven't covered yet. That phrase becomes much harder based on our recording order. We are not sponsored or affiliated with Disney or Disney Plus in any way, shape, or form, but who knows? Maybe they'll get to the finale on this and decide that they want us to cover X-Men Evolution.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, I can't speak for the other shows. I've only really watched the X-Men anime show, but I didn't watch like the other animated shows in America that happened. So
I mean, I feel like we have to watch X-Men Evolution because that's the literal origin of X-23.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, I'm down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I've seen Pride the X-Men, but you haven't, so I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, we do have to do that one. I don't know when, but we have to do that one.
I also just realized, because I usually don't drink during these episodes, and it's a funny order. I finished a whole glass of whiskey in the episode that you're going to hear next week, but is the second one for us today. So
for the viewers, you're sobering up, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's going the other way around right now.
No, I'm saying, God damn it, Rod.
Oh wait, I just put that together. Okay,
yep.
Gotcha. I'm a lightweight. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. A TikTok about something random. I can't remember. I've been drinking. Kind of did more than our normal numbers since the Mystique one. I can't remember what it was.
Was it the one about dancing? Because that one should not have gotten any.
It was the one before that one. I can't remember what we said in that. But it was like, why? Why that? Okay, sure. And of course, make sure to follow us on all your favorite podcast services. And finally, we record these episodes in batches right now in a weird order this time. So if we're reacting to any news about the upcoming series, we may be a few weeks behind.
Or ahead.
Ahead. I forgot to pull this up, but there was a note from Brian again on our YouTube episode. I did remember to not bring it up in the next episode. I'm losing track of
time is a flat circle for Rod right now.
Right. Oh, you can't see this, but Lucy, my cat, is really vying for my attention right now. My shoulder.
So as we're recording this, Rod and I are on a Discord video chat, so we are able to react to each other. And every now and then, I just see the tip of his cat's paw pop onto the shoulder.
My friend Shawnee says it looks like a Muppet fake arm. So this is regarding the Phalanx Covenant episode. Brian says, I'm not sure that's actually Sabretooth at the beginning because the Phalanx couldn't assimilate to mutants yet. So I think that they might have used their mimicry powers to look like Sabretooth so they can infiltrate the mansion and more easily get access to Xavier's files.
I could see that. I could also see it being a story like loophole issue too.
Oh, a loophole, yeah.
Yeah. I don't disagree with Brian. It's totally a possibility though.
And that would explain why Wolverine said he smelled different besides it just being also the Phalanx or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, good point.
Now on to the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 5, Episode 5, titled The Fifth Horseman. It aired on February 8th, 1997. Currently sits at a 7.2 star rating on IMDb. From an airing perspective, this is the tail end.
I was going to say, this was a year after the next episode.
6 months. 6 months. Yeah. Yep. Because it was a fall 96 episode. Airs next.
I don't remember this episode at all. I know I watched all of them at some point in college. But this was just, I didn't recall anything that I saw in this one.
Yeah, it was, again, there's just that small group of episodes that I just missed, and this was one of them. So it starts out with an indigenous kid, teenager, whatever he is age-wise, who's running, was trying to recognize, is this somebody we should know? As far as I could tell, it was not. And then what I did recognize is 4 people are in pursuit of him.
I did not recognize them. I think the one with the horns that we find out later his name, I thought I maybe remember an action figure in like the later Toy Biz lines. I'm
Caliban?
Not sure if I'm correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I remember that correctly, but he looked very, very familiar.
So here's the interesting thing about the other 3. They get referred to in the episode as the Hounds. Mm-hmm. They are wearing the red spiky outfits that in the original comic version of Days of Future Past, the mutant trackers are the Hounds. And they have no relation to this group aside from the tracking and like the physical look. But those were not characters you should have recognized.
So they kind of like MCU'd a thing that existed, turning Taskmaster into a widow or something, that kind of thing where like they like meld together.
Yeah, I think they got a little bit of like creative freedom of, we're not going to go back to Days of Future Past. They weren't going to go and get Rachel Summers, aka Phoenix, to be a part of this story. So they decided to utilize the characters known for tracking in this grouping. And then we do get Caliban.
Did they call him that at the beginning? Maybe I missed it.
Not at the very beginning.
Okay.
I know Caliban because of the comics, that he instantly was recognizable to me, and he was one of the ones who got a action figure. I don't think he was in the original Toy Biz X-Men line. I think he was in the Toy Biz X-Men / X-Force line, which was like when they did the redesigned packaging and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it was like it was either like real late 90s or early 2000.
Late 90s, I would say, yeah. But yeah, in the comics, Caliban's mutant ability is tracking. So it totally makes sense that he would be in this kind of scenario.
The bigger one?
And this is not a spoiler because it actually took effort for me to find this. He's appeared in one other episode.
That's where I recognized him from then.
I doubt you did because he was only on camera for like a quarter second. And he was in his depowered mode.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Okay, so the powered mode was the action figure I remember then.
Yes.
Because I remember the design from somewhere.
If you go to the One Man's Worth episode, when we are in alternate present, the med shack where they're taking Storm to get treated, he is seen for about 6 frames, and that is it.
That's the episode where I was like, was that Darwin? And then we had that whole conversation.
Nope, that was Morph.
Yeah. Oh, what? Oh my God. I'm so...
Yeah. Because there's the shot on the outside with the dude with the all-white face, and that's Morph, that's what Morph is going to look like in the upcoming X-Men 97. And then inside, there's a quick pan over that shows 3 mutants really, really quickly, and he is one of those 3 mutants in his depowered mode. It is that fast.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So it's just the action figure of the powered version then, I remembered. Was the Boomerang guy somebody we were supposed to know?
None of the other 3 Hounds were people I recognized.
Okay.
But yeah, it was Big Guy, Boomerang Guy, and Whip Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were introduced as if they were like a reference to something, but then not really ever again. They were always like in the group.
I think that is literally just the Hounds of generic mutant tracking mutants, essentially. Mm-hmm. They go after and they're trying to catch this kid, and he's hiding behind the tree. They attack the tree with the boomerang. It falls, ends up causing a fire because an exploding tree would catch on fire. And then they point out that they need him alive.
That whole thing was kind of funny because I guess, we find out later they're not too experienced because, like you said, the tree explodes, but also like it blocks off their way to get to him. So they slow themselves down. And
then I have big laser shoots from hand, and then he knocks out the big hound, basically.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I was like, okay, this is a specific character then. I guess not.
No, I mean, he might be, but he was not somebody, and we've kind of talked about this. When you get to these final episodes, the Easter eggs, notes, etc., like tidbits that you're able to find online, just dramatically decrease in quantity. So, there may be somebody who knows what the reference is, but I couldn't find it.
And then they switch over to another area inside like a temple or something. I know this is wrong, but I just think you'd get a laugh out of who I thought this was at the beginning. It was like, is this Hodge again? He's talking to Apocalypse. It's just
why would you think it's Hodge?
Because it was last time. But luckily for people like me, Apocalypse, who has this weird transparency effect over the statue.
It was like a psychic projection, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like from the animation standpoint.
Yeah.
They were just like, they like overlaid it. He's like, Cortez. He's like, okay, cool.
We finally got the payoff from the Asteroid M episode of this is why Cortez is here. And then, to their credit, they actually clarify when all the other stuff was happening, he got brought in, and then he was hidden as a contingency plan. I actually love that they remembered to bring that up.
Yeah, they showed the other characters from that scene, like Deathbird and stuff, that were all there. So, yeah, it wasn't just like he mentioned it and then they went on. They actually showed everything. So
we get the story that essentially, after the events of Beyond Good and Evil, Apocalypse is floating in the void, and because of a celestial alignment, they were going to be able to bring him back they phrase it as the time of the conjunction. Rod, did you freak out when you heard celestial?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
God damn it, Rod. I literally can never predict what you're going to pick up on and what you're not going to.
Right. So was that one was referenced to, or is just a
no?
word?
So at one point we actually see what this conjunction looks like in the sky, and there's 3 dots in a triangle pattern, essentially. I started looking up all the classic Celestials who would have been in the comics at the time of this. And I was looking for, like, is there a combination of how the eyes are laid out? At least from what I could do from a, cursory Google image search, there was not one who fit that pattern. So
that's a good point. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that at times. Like that's the only thing that really differentiates most of the Celestials, right? Is like some of like the head ornaments and then the eyes on the face.
Yeah, and I mean, it's known that Apocalypse's technology that helps keeps him alive is like he discovered celestial tech and has used it, abused it, and stuff like that. But I was like, are we like getting a celestial hint, which was not a thing that was really talked about at that era, especially, and still kind of isn't because it's only associated to the Eternals. But anyway, Cortez is basically giving the same spiel to Apocalypse that he was giving to Magneto, like calling him Lord, and just felt like a fucking creepy cult. There was no other way to describe it. It definitely just felt like a cult.
Yeah, and he's very much like the follower that always needs someone to worship.
Right.
It's kind of like your, that one friend that's never not been in a relationship, even if it's bad,
And I also, in this scene, saw one of the pieces of the animation that kind of changed with the difference in studio. If you look at Apocalypse's face, and apologies that we're not able to screen grab some of this stuff for you guys, because Disney Plus, if you try to screen grab on your computer, literally just makes your thing a black screen. Yeah. So that's a whole other separate issue. But Apocalypse has like little fangs. If you actually look at his teeth, he actually has very like tiny fangs for his canine teeth now.
Oh man, and they end up doing that with like Sinister or something too. Oh, like Sinister already had those. Never mind.
Sinister had like the shark teeth, just like little tiny spiky ones all next to each other. Yeah,
it's weird. Yeah, there's some continuity and some not. It's weird. I guess this could be chalked up to like he's coming back in a new form or something. So sure.
See, I just think it was the animation studio because there were character redesigns, and this is the first time we see the redesign for Jubilee because this is the first episode with her in it, and it's pretty obviously a redesign of the character because now she's definitely aged up a little bit. We have the confirmation that at the very least she's 15 and a half with a learner's permit.
Yeah, because she's driving. I had a note here,
and pretty competently. I will give him credit. She wasn't like driving like shit.
Oh, that's right, because they weren't even in like the States. So no, they weren't like regular roads that we're used to in America or whatever. Yeah,
she was literally off-roading.
My note here was that Jubilee looks like Guy from Captain Planet. Remember her with the water power? She had the same bob and everything.
I could totally see it. Yeah.
I don't know if that was just like 90s generic cartoon, vaguely Asian girl design or whatever.
Right.
But she was also speaking like really broken Spanish. I don't speak Spanish and I could tell.
Yep. I wrote Jubilee was speaking Spanish and gets into a car with Beast and then driving and then 16 ? Circled.
I guess. Well, yeah, 15 and a half. I guess it depends on where you were, right?
Our area, you could get it at like 15 and a half. I want to say until I was like 13, that was what it was. And then everybody started shifting it. Like you get your learner's permit the day you're 16, and then you can like do your 6-month trial and stuff like that. So
I can't remember. That's so long ago now. Jeez.
I mean, God, we're old. we were children when this show came out, Rod.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But she was basically saying to Beast how she'd wished he could have been there, that the shopkeep was really nice. Beast gives the obvious answer of, yeah, I'm sure he was. I still can't blend into other societies right now,
Yeah, especially because they, we find out as the episode goes along, they're kind of in a remote area where it's less like modern per se, even though they were at a general store.
Right.
But it wasn't, it's kind of, it wasn't certain that people were going to know what all these different mutants and stuff are.
Right. Well, we get some hints that they're digging in the Andes. At one point, she says that they're 12 feet above sea level. So, like, this is not easy comms. Like, this is, probably a little bit like that Japanese village that Logan went to in the previous season. Nobody had really good internet back then in 97. This spot wasn't getting good internet for another 15 years. So.
Yeah. They're just now getting a line run out.
They now have, like, DirecTV satellite internet, which is still garbage.
Or what was the 56K modem? Was that the standard?
It was 56K, and it was like 32 before that? Yeah, 33.
Oh, speaking of Logan, though, like, they just talk shit about him just randomly in the middle of this conversation.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because it never comes back up again.
Yeah, but then she's really happy because she got to come with him. She bought him this World's Greatest Teacher mug, and she's excited because she's getting out of the mansion, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
But Beast really wants to go home, it sounds like. It's like he's at the tail end of this project, this dig, and he's like ready to go home. And then he like goes on this little tangent about how nature has a dark side. And I was like, where the fuck is this coming from? I figured of all people, you would be the one who loves nature the most.
And they never brought that up again.
Nope.
Really. Or maybe it was like vaguely kind of referring to the events that happens with Apocalypse later, but that's not really, that's a stretch.
So at that point, we hop back and Caliban is with Cortez, just panicking, understandable. And, what we've seen with Cortez in the past, not only can he power up somebody, but he could depower them. You get a little further insight that, he needs to find this vessel to be the host for Apocalypse, essentially. And it's like, cool, get your shit together or I'm going to make this worse for you. And then he repowers him back up.
And I feel like this is level up for Cortez too, right? Because he was able to power people up before, but this one, he's like 10x.
Yeah, I mean, because Caliban was a little scrawny dude. He wasn't, It wasn't like just making Magneto better with his power. Like, he actually physically enhanced this. And I'm sure a part of that comes from, being chosen by Apocalypse. And, we've seen what Apocalypse can do. And even though it's never said in the episode, the title is the Fifth Horseman. So that gives me the impression that Apocalypse did do something to him on a genetic level or an augmentation level to make him even greater than what he was before, on this stuff.
Yeah, he even refers to Caliban as a Morlock. So that's why I was like, how have we seen him before? So I guess not. He was basically kind of insulting him. He was like, you're living in the sewers.
In the comics, he was a Morlock too.
Yeah, and then I was just trying to remember if we saw him at the Christmas episode.
We did not. Nope. Cut back to the Jeep. Jubilee almost drives them into a ravine. Again, new driver. And they see a local tribal bridge where it had the stone moorings that were ancient, but the ropes were pretty new.
They could tell that they were recently used, so he felt pretty Beast felt pretty confident they could cross.
So Beast is like, yeah, we could just do it on foot, which that car is going to get stolen. Right. That's literally the first thing that came to mind is like, oh, in the middle of the desert, there's just a Jeep that's left there. Somebody's going to steal that fucking thing.
If nothing else, just like the shit inside of it, because it looked like it was loaded with supplies. They just went to the general store to get food and stuff.
Dude, that's totally worth stealing. So that's where Jubilee lets out the 12,000 foot comment, and Caliban, who is with the other hounds, is like eating lunch or something and senses the mutant in her.
Now that you say that his power is tracking, that whole sequence makes sense.
Right. Because if you don't have the context that his power is tracking, that makes a lot of sense to me that you were like, what?
I just thought he heard her or something, or because I mean, no, here he has like basically flashbacks of her. I guess it's just a sense, but it's like flashbacks of the Jubilee we knew with like the pixie cut and stuff in the old animation style.
It's sensing of a mutant power is essentially what he is able to track.
And I guess it's level, right? Because Cortez said it has to be like a worthy vessel or whatever, or powerful enough.
Yep. So Beast is checking out the pictographs on the sides of those moorings and realizes that they're Mayan. And thank God they spelled it out, because I was like, I would not remember where Mayan and the various South American tribes, where they were placed. And he's like, yeah, we're about 3,000 miles too far south for this.
He originally reads it, I'm trying to remember right, it was like the temple is in the consecration of the end of the world. And so like, oh, that's really doom and gloom.
Yep.
And he starts sussing out, it's like, oh, it's a very nuanced in translation.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's actually consecrated to Apocalypse. And he says to Apocalypse, not to a Apocalypse. At that point, we get where they call out one of the hounds by name, and his name is Blade.
Oh, wait, that's confusing because I know there's a Blade in the Marvel Universe.
Without being able to look it up off the top of my head, I think the Blade in the Spider-Man cartoon had already been on air before this would air. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that the Blade in the cartoon led to the Blade in the movie. I feel like the timeline lines up that Blade would have been there first, but tell us we're wrong in the comments because we're usually good at that.
Oh, yeah, and then this is also where Caliban gets his name called out.
Yes. So green boomerang pops up, the whip comes out, and Beast is like, "Hey, yeah, we're chill. We're gonna leave. Our bad."
We don't need to be here.
Jubilee runs off, Beast starts to fight, and that's where, to your point, Caliban remembers Jubilee. That's where he gets the flashbacks, realizing that it's her. The bridge collapses because Caliban basically stops the boomerang from hitting Jubilee, which these hounds are not smart. Like, Caliban is the only one that's not an idiot because they're like, yeah, let's keep blowing up the vessel. I feel like Cortez did a great job finding Caliban. The others are fucking idiots.
That's why there's so much pressure on Caliban, because he's like, you're the only one that can really...
You're the only one that understands that you don't kill the thing you're trying to take back alive.
Yeah.
No. Fucking Caliban. But the rope bridge breaks. Caliban basically, like, reaches down, does the last minute save, and then the green whip is able to grab him and pull him back up. And he's just like, sorry.
Yeah, that was a little confusing because... it wasn't confusing. I guess it was just like, I was like, what is he going to do now? Because they're walking towards Cortez, and he didn't seem to have a plan.
Oh, he definitely didn't have a plan.
So you're still delivering her.
I think it's literally because the hounds would have stopped him. Like, it's easier for him to come up with a plan as he has more time than to panic. I think Caliban is actually a very smart character in this. As doofy as he sometimes is, it's like, shit, I probably shouldn't cause a fiasco right now kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Then they arrive. I believe, again, they specified that these were Mayans. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they specified that. But they all have the Apocalypse, what I refer to as the lip makeup.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you're doing that on an audio podcast, Rod.
Yeah. No, they go. It goes like from the ear through the jaw.
Yep, and then back up. It's a more refined version of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Oh, yeah.
But Beast recognizes that there's another Lazarus temple, and we do get the confirmation of the timeline that this has obviously happened after the events of Beyond Good and Evil, because it's specified that Cable blew up the other one. And that's where they see Fabian, and he is like douchebag high priest of Apocalypse. There's like, that's the best way I could describe him.
Yeah, he's back in it because he lost faith in Magneto. I guess his knowledge, he lost Magneto. He doesn't know he's alive, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't have a way of knowing that.
Yeah, he might, but they didn't give us any indication that he did. So
actually, you know what? He probably would know because he worked for Apocalypse.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
he's also that guy. Or unless there's, I don't know. Either way, he found a new master, and that's his thing. He can't be without a leader.
No, he's totally a follower, and the one time he tried to be a leader, he fucked it up in like less than 24 hours.
Oh yeah, that's right, because he tried to lead a coup. That was interesting.
A very, very poorly planned coup. So we get a flashback to the Apocalypse and the events from before Beyond Good and Evil. And yeah, he basically said he was sent to wander the world and essentially be the fail-safe plan and create the hounds. That was the role that he was given by Apocalypse.
I will give them credit. This was a clever writing trick to extend what was going to be the finale of the series. And it was believable.
Yeah, it was just really kind of weird that we lost Cortez after having that moment at the end of it, but it did pay off. So, it was kind of like probably one of those, well, we have this if we need it. We don't have to use it, and I'm glad that they did. So Beast starts to say, well, your problem is with me. Let Jubilee go. And I'm pretty sure there was no way that was going to happen.
Right. I didn't have a better way to describe this. It just said Cortez hulks Beast out. Like,
yeah, he essentially is, I've done this a bunch. I've never seen what the max is, so I'm just going to keep going until he either explodes or I run out of my power.
Oh, that's right, yeah. He was like, he's either going to survive or he's not. And if he does, then he might be worthy.
Right. And again, having not watched this final batch of episodes in so long, I was like, wait, are they saying that the fifth Horseman is Beast?
Oh, that's true.
That was a question again, because it never actually gets addressed in the episode formally. As like, oh, is that status of becoming the Horseman, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like how they do, the different TV shows and stuff now. It's like open-ended. It's kind of Cortez is kind of the main storyline, and the B plot all have like they fit that thing. Like they're all the fifth Horseman in a way.
Yeah, unfortunately for Cortez, the power-up does not go the way that he wants, and he overpowers Beast, who gets like all spiky. And we talked about it in an upcoming episode where he basically starts spouting spikes out of him. And it reminds me of like a mutated Hulk, like Weapon H style character from the current comics.
That's what you guys were talking about.
That's what we will be talking about.
We'll be talking about. I'm losing my timelines in the real life now.
God, I wish that this was a time travel episode that we were recording out of order just to totally mess with your head.
That would be funny. Did you see the thing I posted on our IG stories the other day? Like, I think only 90s Kids Know posted the 10 storylines for every X-Men episode.
No.
It was pretty great.
You could tell that Rod and I communicate really well when we're not actually recording.
You can look at it after this. It was very, very various like things. Like number 1 was like aliens fuck up Scott's day, and then 2 like time travelers fuck up Scott's day. Like someone fucks up the mansion. It was like multiverse fucks up Scott's day. it was great.
To be fair, he deserves it.
Right.
But that is where you actually see the 3 dots in the air that I was trying to figure out if it was related to the comic proper Celestials.
Yeah, and they never come back to that either.
We kind of do.
Okay, well, did they explain it? Like
No.
It's an alignment.
Yeah, it's an alignment. It's celestial bodies. It's not celestial as in capital C celestial. So.
Yeah.
Yep. So they take Jubilee below. Caliban begins to plead, let us find another vessel. And Cortez is not having it. And, is like, is this sympathy you have for an X-Men? It was so condescending for a dude who's literally only interacted with them for, like, again, 24 hours.
Yeah, everything happens kind of quick. They need to expedite everything.
He confirms that she's going to be sacrificed. It cuts over to Hank, who decides to demolish the truck, which has not been stolen yet.
But they weren't gone that long, right? It was a big fight.
It became nighttime, so I'd say it was at least like 3-4 hours, probably.
But it doesn't matter because he just like once again he does like a Hulk thing.
He sees himself in the mirror, and that pisses him off. So he like rips off the door, flips the car, and then he sees the picture of the X-Men and gets like a little confused by it.
I thought that was going to be like a moment where he realizes that he's still in there somewhere.
Right. I was totally expecting that. I was so happy they didn't do the trope. Like, I thought all of a sudden you were going to see like the one tear pop down from his eye. and they didn't do it. I actually liked that they didn't go the tropey route.
The tear lands on the ground like a flower sprouts, and then he finds the true self.
Sir, this is not the long shot episode.
Right. But they faked us out twice.
Yeah.
Because he finds a picture of him in Jubilee that... and then it doesn't really amount to... I mean, maybe it's supposed to add up to something. I mean, I guess it kind of convinced him, but it didn't like turn him back into...
Right. He doesn't become sane again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he then just proceeds to like jump across the ravine again.
Which would have been handy earlier.
Yeah, so we cut back to the pit. Jubilee is there. They bring her to the altar. She's like asking for help, begging. And Caliban is like, no, I'll take her place. And Cortez is like, why would I want you? You suck.
Yeah. That was such an insult.
Here's the funny thing, though. I kind of get it. And I'm not saying Cortez isn't a piece of shit, but he thinks of this creature to be so lowly that he doesn't want his god to invade that thing's body. Like, he considers Jubilee a level of worthy. So I kind of get it. He's like, no, you were the sewer trash. I in my evil way, I can't justify using you.
And I love that it never crosses Cortez's mind that either he's being set up to become the vessel or that he is also not worthy. I found the 10 basic X-Men plots. These are great. Number 1, aliens ruin Scott Summers' day.
Yep.
Number 2, the teenage female audience surrogate Kitty, Jubilee, or Armor does something cool. Number 3, bigots ruin Scott Summers' day. 4, Storm wrestles with her leadership position. 5, time travels ruins Scott Summers' day. 6, everything's connected to Wolverine. 7, literal demons rise from hell to ruin Scott Summers' day.
That's probably in one of the later series, but yes, yep.
8, Professor Xavier turns out to have done a bad thing once.
Oh, God.
9, The other X-Men ruined Scott Summers' day.
Pretty much all of those apply to this show except for the demons.
And then number 10, Phoenix shows up, probably to ruin Scott Summers' day.
Yep. Props to whichever site we stole that from.
Nostalgic 90s. And I don't know where they got it from. That's where I found it.
Oh, they definitely stole it from somebody. So Caliban, fed up, definitely didn't like being insulted by Cortez either. Just drops Cortez pretty handily, takes him down. Yeah. But then starts to fight the hounds. Still 3 versus 1. He can't take all of them down. He gets overwhelmed. And that's where we see depowered Caliban. That is the Caliban we saw in One Man's Worth.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. That's the Morlock version or whatever.
Yeah, and then Cortez does the whole, like, you're not even worth my time. Apocalypse is going to call the weak. And it's like, if he's not worth your time, why is it worth your god's time to kill him?
Right. Just drop him off the ravine. Apocalypse comes back, but also so does Beast.
Yeah. Beast comes back. At that point, Cortez learns the error of his ways because Caliban goes and starts unhooking Jubilee. As that's happening, Beast fucks up Temple is the note.
Yeah. Beast smashes the temple, which is like, where's Storm? This is her thing, killing people with buildings.
Also boats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just some sort of like vessel that people are in.
Right. So Jubilee proceeds to zap Cortez. Temple starts collapsing. Beast runs up and goes to Cortez. And what I could only assume is Beast was going to eat him.
Yeah, I thought he was going to either that or just rip him in half. Like Mortal Kombat, that shit. Not on the show, obviously, but like, you know, because he was going full berserker.
Oh, man, there's now the picture in my head of 2 characters that you won't be familiar with, I'm pretty sure. Ares and the Sentry.
They sound familiar, but I can't.
So there is a story where the Sentry literally rips Ares in half, and I just picture Beast doing that to Cortez.
Right.
It's a great death scene. I will send you a picture of that one.
Yeah, because it's just the momentum. They, you know, with all the joking we make about how like weird the animation is in this last season, they did a good job of like showing the momentum of him.
Yeah,
running at Cortez. Like, oh, he's gone. I know they're not going to show blood on this show, but holy crap.
Well, they also, with the way that he's animated while he's powered, Caliban size, and then the muscular hulking one of the hounds, like there are some pretty beefy, oversized characters in this episode. But yeah, so Cortez depowers Beast to not get ripped in half. Cortez goes and grabs the gun, but Jubilee makes the save. Jubilee then grabs Hank and Caliban, and they start to make their way out as the collapse is happening.
And they're all used to this. They're like, well, we're both killing a bunch of people in a building and leaving a villain as a loose end.
Right.
Behind,
but
so.
Cortez gets trapped by a rock.
I thought he was going to be done.
I thought it was just going to crush him, like straight up.
Yeah.
Hank is like, oh no, we can't leave him. And Jubilee's like, no, fuck that guy.
Right.
I just want to hear the re-edit of the show with how we would write the character dialogue at this point.
Right. Because, yeah, actually, Jubilee being, you know, a late teenager or mid-teenager or whatever, that would be her response. She might even like look back and zap the rock to give it a little push.
Or at the very least, like, turn back, middle finger in the air, you know?
Yeah, with the zap.
Yeah. So the temple continues to crumble. They're outside, and you see them telling Caliban, who's, you know, in his depowered state, to come back home. He feels like he doesn't deserve the help, and, you know, Jubilee does what Jubilee does and says, you know, it's not your fault, which...
Yeah.
Yeah, he also was in probably an awful scenario. Being in the Morlocks, gets overtaken by this religious lunatic. It's, you know, I'm not saying he doesn't have to atone for it, but also his head got messed with. So
well, it's kind of like one of those, you know, we're even now. You got us into this mess, but also we wouldn't be able to get out of it without you. So let's just call it like...
Or Hank would have eaten everybody.
Right? So that was another funny thing. Cortez, we knew that he could depower people that he powered up.
Yeah.
But he didn't think, like, when Beast went wrong earlier, he didn't think, like, oh, as he's running into the woods, let me, like, not have that wild animal running in the woods be a loose end and come back and get me.
I think it literally came from it being, it's a wild animal, not a, like, cognizant animal.
Yeah. And also, that's just from a point of view of, like, an audience person, you know, somebody watching it that knows the tropes of, like, what's the worst that could happen if I let that hellhound loose in the woods or whatever? They're not going to come back in the third act.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. we do understand storytelling, and from the perspective of a character, they don't know which act they're in. End up back inside the temple, and Cortez is there, still stuck. Apocalypse is still incoming. And he's like, yeah, no, sorry, there's no vessel. And Apocalypse is like, no, there's a vessel.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
No. So I did appreciate the animation that they chose to do for it. I know that's weird on these episodes to say I appreciate the animation, but you literally see the astral plane style equivalent of Cortez's soul get sucked out of his own body, and then he transforms, the physical body transforms into Apocalypse.
So that kind of implies that they swapped places then, right?
Yeah.
So now Cortez is like trapped in whatever that like weird like time axis.
The void, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is like worse than dying.
Yeah, because you don't get to die.
Yeah.
Because Apocalypse isn't going back to help him.
And he's stuck with weird, annoying Kang.
Is he?
I don't know. You won't find out in next week's episode, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we definitely won't find that out in next week's episode. So, that's how it ends, with the Apocalypse evil laugh.
Yeah.
I do love this show. Batman sometimes had like the bittersweet endings and stuff like that, or just like the somber Batman endings. This show had villain endings. Like straight up, This show ended with, Apocalypse won. Like, let's be real. Apocalypse actually won.
Maniacal laugh and all.
Yeah.
And
so
I honestly don't remember if he pops back up in this 5th season.
So I can actually confirm this is the final appearance of Apocalypse in the original 92 run.
Nice.
He had 11 appearances in the series, like episode count.
So we're almost certainly going to see him in 97.
I don't see how you don't. He's remained such a cool and important character in the comics since then. He's a cornerstone of that world.
And this ending is like a gift to the next writer.
It's like, hey, you get your toy back.
So open. They could do anything with this. Apocalypse could hide for another 1,000 years. Yeah, we could pick up right from the temple. Or anything in between. So
some of the other notes that came from Eric Lewald on this one, the change in design did bother him. And like we talked about it, like Beast was obviously not as dramatic, but Jubilee's design started changing. And he literally talks about how the change in the opening song and everything, why fix something that wasn't broken, you know? Especially something as iconic as the opening theme.
It's weird because music law and rights are already so weird even to this day.
Right.
And obviously back then was weirder. Hence why, Ron, who did the theme song, wasn't really known to the public for like a decade or so.
Of course.
To the internet. But also then it's like, you don't know, like, was there a weird thing internally where they couldn't use the original recording? So like Saban was like, make a cheap version, kids won't notice. Or something. They needed something, or they needed to change something enough
or so someone else could get money. Or it was the shake it up because it's the last season and we want to stand out. Because it's one of those things where design changes and music changes are great if they're great, or they miss if they miss,
Right. If you stay tuned till next week, you'll hear our guest thoughts on this new theme song.
Yeah, we should shout out who our guest is for next week.
Yeah, next week is my buddy Carlos Castillo, as some people will know as the Nostalgic Latino. I accidentally stumbled into Nostalgia TikTok, and so I made a few friends there. Carlos actually found me, and I'd already seen his content. Likely you have too. He kind of blew up from doing, silent-ish comedy, where it's mainly like little vignettes of 90s, 2000s, like millennial humor, remembering. He calls it unlocking memories. So he'll be on next week. I can say, since we've recorded it, it was really great. Yep. It's good to hang out. You should check that out. It's the weirdest episode.
It is the weirdest episode. And then in 3 weeks from now, we also have Michelle Waffle, who I've met through X-Men fandom at conventions like Comic-Con and WonderCon. So we pre-recorded 2 episodes with awesome guests. Final notes about this episode, though. They were going for what was described as an Indiana Jones vibe, and I could see that in hindsight. Eric was also very much impressed by the nerve of Cortez as a character, because it's like, damn, he's ballsy, and he literally is so arrogant that he never thinks that Apocalypse is going to turn on him. He thinks he is that fucking valuable that he's not going to get turned on.
Oh yeah, that's what I said earlier. I was like, Beast warns him, but also like you don't think that either you're going to be the vessel, right, or there's something else.
And then the last notes that were floating around online was Caliban is obviously familiar with Jubilee. The impression that the online community is given is that they met during the Christmas episode, because that would have been the episode where Jubilee met the Morlocks. Mm-hmm. So even though it was not on screen, that is where they likely cross paths, because he specifically remembers her actions and her generosity. Sure as hell wasn't when Storm became the leader of the Morlocks, right. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's why I thought, like, did we... Because I know it was... Well, I can't remember anybody's names. Leech I know it was definitely Leech and then the little girl.
Maria.
Yep. I was like, was there another kid that I don't remember?
Nope.
Or something? But also, depending on how many years it's been since, maybe this has been a tradition. They go down to the sewers and hang with Morlocks for the holidays.
The only other spot when I was doing some image searching on it is there was a shot from the Slave Island episode where there was a character who looked a little bit like Leech, who could look a little bit like Darwin, even though we know Darwin didn't exist in the comics at the time, that he was standing next to Farrell from X-Force, and that could also have been Caliban in Genosha, but Jubilee wasn't there, so she wouldn't have met him at that point. So it's got to be the off-screen meeting at Christmas.
Christmas makes sense. That's why he would go to all that trouble to risk his life to. When we say Apocalypse, that's his name, but also like in that world, that's the ultimate power, right? Like that's the deity. That world. He never goes away.
Top notch, yeah. Final thoughts?
I did not enjoy this episode, but now that we're talking through it, the story points were better than I remembered or experienced them. I think we say this next week too, but like just the animation style makes us forgive less.
Yeah.
About these episodes.
Yeah, the animation not being the quality that we had gotten used to, and it's like it's not even the B team; it's literally like the equivalent of the C team that is doing these episodes. So that part isn't great.
At least this one fits within the continuity of the show.
Very well within the continuity of the show.
But if you want to see the opposite of that, tune in next week.
Definitely watch it.
We don't follow up on what happens to the events of this episode whatsoever.
No. Thank you guys for joining us. If you have any thoughts, please make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or the official Instagram post of this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app of your choosing, or all of them if you so choose to do so. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. We only got like 5 episodes left. It's kind of sad.
Oh, also, Amazon Music's a new thing. Hi, Amazon people.